Humanity built planet-sized warships in secret. Then we rose, and the empires fell. But before the rise, there was silence. Elias Kane sat alone in the observatory dome, watching the slow drift of Saturn's rings. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the station's life support systems. He liked it that way. Silence meant nobody could see how much his thoughts hurt. 3 years ago, his sister Mara had left. She wasn't gone forever, at least not officially. She had joined the Deep Range Engineering Corps, the most secretive branch of the Terran Defense Authority. No one talked about what they built out there in the far reaches of the solar system. The Corps didn't allow calls, letters, or even recorded messages. One day, she had simply boarded a transport and vanished beyond the asteroid belt. Elias missed her more than he ever thought possible. They had grown up together in the steel corridors of Titan Station, the only children in their sector. Every secret, every joke, every little rebellion, they had shared it all. Now there was just an empty seat at their favorite table in the mess hall, and silence where her laughter should have been. He tried not to be angry. She was doing something important. He knew that. But knowing didn't help when the nights grew too long. It was a strange time to be human. The galaxy thought Earth was quiet, almost irrelevant. The alien empires saw humans as harmless traders, colonists, and miners scattered across a few small worlds, no threat to anyone. Elias had seen alien diplomats pass through Titan Station, speaking with polite smiles about maintaining the peace and keeping humanity in its proper role. Most people believed that role was staying small, staying silent. And yet, in the empty hours of night shift, Elias sometimes wondered if that was why Mara had gone. Not just for duty, but because somewhere, far out in the darkness, humanity was preparing for something big. Something they couldn't yet show to the galaxy. One evening, after his shift, Elias walked to the outer maintenance platform. From here, the view stretched all the way to Jupiter, a tiny glowing coin in the distance. He remembered Mara standing here years ago, leaning against the railing, telling him, "One day, Eli, the galaxy will see what we can do. We're not small, we're not weak, we're just quiet for now." Her words echoed in his mind like a whisper from the past. He wanted to reach her, to tell her he still believed in what she was doing, even if the distance between them felt like an ocean of stars. But every channel was locked, every frequency scrambled. The Corps didn't leave loose ends. So he did what he always did. He waited. One night, as he was closing the observatory, his terminal pinged. Not the normal station chime, but a deep, low tone he'd never heard before. His hands trembled as he opened the encrypted message. It was short. 6 words. Eli, watch the skies. Soon. No sender ID. No coordinates, but he knew. He knew in his bones it was Mara. For hours after, he couldn't sleep. What did she mean? Soon? What? Weeks passed. Then one day, the station's routine changed. Cargo routes were suddenly cleared. The outer sensor arrays, normally left in standby mode, were powered to full strength. A quiet urgency spread through the command decks. Elias caught fragments of conversations between officers, strange readings from beyond the Kuiper Belt, mass signatures too big to be ships, moving slowly toward the inner system. He tried to ask questions, but every superior officer simply told him to focus on his duties. The galaxy outside had no idea anything was happening. Trade fleets passed by as usual. The alien news networks were full of petty border disputes and market prices, but Elias could feel it. Something was coming. That night, he returned to the maintenance platform. The sky was cold and vast. He traced the constellations with his eyes. Orion Cassiopeia, the curve of Saturn's rings. And then, he saw it, a faint point of light far out in the black. At first, He thought it was just a star, but it was moving. Slowly, steadily, with purpose. His chest tightened. Could it be? Over the next few days, more appeared, each one brighter than the last. They were massive. So massive the stations. Instruments had trouble measuring them. And still, no word to the public. The galaxy didn't know. Finally, 2 weeks later, the first of them passed close enough for Titan Station's scopes to get a clear image. Elias watched the feed, his heart pounding. It was not a ship. Not in the way anyone understood ships. It was a world, a planet, hollowed and reforged in shining black metal, its surface studded with colossal weapon emplacements and city-sized engines. Across its equator, vast panels glimmered with the reflection of the sun. It was beautiful, terrifying. Human. The engineers whispered a name. Titan. Elias stared at it for hours, barely breathing. He knew now where Mara had been all these years. She hadn't left him. She had been building this. For the first time since she left, he felt something stronger than sadness, pride. Humanity had been silent for centuries, but not because it was weak. They had been preparing, working in the shadows, crafting giants in the dark. And now, the silence was ending. Elias didn't know what would happen next. But deep down, he knew Mara was right. The galaxy would see what humans could do. This was the silence before the storm? Asterisk, the spark that lit the fuse. That's what people would one day call it. But for Elias Kane, it began with another empty morning. He sat at his workstation, staring at a pile of sensor logs. Outside the viewport, Saturn's rings glimmered softly in the light of the distant sun. Most days, the beauty of space was enough to keep him going. But not today. Ever since Titan, the warship, not the station, had passed through the system, Elias couldn't think of anything else. Somewhere out there, Mara was aboard that planet-sized giant. He had seen the crews walking along its outer decks in the magnified images. Tiny figures against a sea of black steel. One of them could have been her. He had tried sending a message through every channel he could access. No reply. The Defense Authority's communication walls were too strong. Every night, he lay awake, wondering if she'd even received his message, or if it had been deleted before she could see it. Then it happened. A distress signal came in from the colony of Yalara, 4, a small settlement in the outer rim of the Human Alliance. The Korthan Empire claimed it was in their sphere of influence and accused the settlers of trespassing. The message from Yalara, 4, was short and desperate. They've landed troops. Please, someone, help us. Elias watched from the command deck as the station's officers argued over what to do. The Galactic Council had strict laws about conflict zones. Humans were supposed to file formal protests, wait for council, review, and hope for a diplomatic resolution. Everyone knew that meant the settlers would be gone long before the council acted. Elias couldn't keep quiet. Why don't we send Titan? He asked. The room fell silent. One of the officers glared. At him. That ship is on classified duty. You're out of line, Kane. But his words must have reached someone important. Because 3 hours later, every human shipyard in the inner system went dark. The news feeds showed nothing unusual, but Elias knew the signs. The same blackout protocol had been used before Titan's arrival. Something was moving. The following day, Titan vanished from the outer system's tracking grids. The official story was routine deep space testing. Elias didn't believe that for a second. His hunch was confirmed when he got another anonymous message on his terminal. This time, it wasn't just text. It was a short video. Mara's face. She looked older, sharper, dressed in the black and silver uniform of the First Fleet. Eli, she said, voice low. We're going to Yalara. I can't say more. Just "Watch the skies." The video cut off before he could replay it. That night, Elias could hardly breathe from the tension. Yalara 4 wasn't far in cosmic terms, only a few days at full drive. But the Korthan fleet stationed there was huge, far larger than any human force had faced openly in centuries. The next morning, Titan reappeared on the station's long-range scopes. It was moving faster than anything its size should be. Able to move. Around it were smaller escorts, cruisers, carriers, and destroyers, all painted in the deep black of the Defense Authority. Elias spent every break in the observation dome, watching the progress reports. When Titan dropped into the Alara system, the feed from the recon drones went silent for 12 minutes. When the signal returned, the Korthan flagship was gone. Entire enemy formations had been erased. It hadn't even been a battle, just a single, overwhelming strike. On the station, the news spread like fire. Humans whispered in awe. Aliens on the trading decks looked uneasy. The Galactic Council issued a statement calling for restraint, but no one was listening. Elias didn't care about the politics. All he cared about was that Mara had been there. She had seen what humanity could do when it stopped hiding. That night, standing on the maintenance platform, Elias felt the cold wind from the environmental vents wash over him. Above, the stars glittered like shards of glass. Somewhere out there, Mara was looking at a different patch of the same galaxy. He wished he could tell her how proud he was. How much seeing Titan in action had filled him with hope. Not just for humanity's place in the stars, but for them, for the bond that distance and silence hadn't broken. A week later, another message came. This one was just audio. Eli, I don't have long. The First Fleet isn't stopping. The Council will hate us for it, but we can't stop now. You've seen what's out there. We can't let them think we're prey. When this is the first strike, that was what the historians would call it years later. But to Elias Kane, it was simply the day he felt both closer to Mara and farther away than ever got. It had been 2 weeks since Yalara 4. The galaxy still buzzed with rumors about the human superweapon that had destroyed the Korthan flagship in minutes. Alien news anchors tried to make it sound like a lucky accident or an experimental device that would never be used again. Elias knew better. He knew. It wasn't a one-time miracle. Titan was only the beginning, and he knew Mara was still out there. Somewhere aboard that enormous warship, life on Titan Station went on, but the atmosphere had changed. Trade ships arrived cautiously, their alien captains eyeing human officers with new wariness. The Council's representatives had grown quieter, less condescending. Even the station's own command staff carried themselves differently, as if standing a little taller. But for Elias, pride was mixed with a dull ache. He hadn't heard from Mara since her short audio message after Yalara. Sometimes he sat in the observation dome and tried to imagine what her days were like. Was she standing on Titan's vast decks, looking out at alien stars? Was she training, fixing systems, preparing for the next battle? Did she ever think of him? He wanted to reach her, but there was still no open channel. The fleet's comms were locked down tighter than ever. The more humanity's secret came into the open, the less anyone outside the Defense Authority was allowed to know. One night, Elias's terminal pinged with a priority alert. Not a personal message, but news from the fleet. The Korthan Empire had issued a challenge. They called Titan's attack on Yalara cowardly and demanded a public engagement. Their fleet, led by the new flagship Vigilant Star, was gathering. In the Helios Rift, one of the largest trade routes in the galaxy, the rift was deep in Korthan space. No human ship had been allowed there in centuries. Elias's stomach tightened. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. But the First Fleet was going anyway. The next morning, long-range scopes picked up Titan's departure. This time, the warship was. not alone. Two more giant silhouettes followed in its wake, the freshly completed Leviathan and the heavy carrier, Aegis Dawn. Smaller escorts swung around them like schools of fish following massive whales. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't just a rescue mission. This was a message. Elias worked double shifts in the sensor bays, combing through the flood of tactical data streaming from the recon drones. Most of it was scrambled beyond his clearance level, but even the basic telemetry told a story. The First Fleet was moving at speeds no one thought possible for ships of that size. Every day, they closed the distance to the rift. Every day, Elias found himself checking the data, not just for fleet updates, but for signs of Mara. He knew he wouldn't see her name, but he still looked. When the First Fleet reached the rift, the live feed went dark. For 3 long hours, the station heard nothing. No images, no comms. Only the faint static of blocked transmissions. Elias sat in the observatory, gripping the rail so hard his knuckles turned white. Around him, officers and engineers muttered in nervous tones. Even the alien merchants had stopped pretending to work, staring at the silent holoscreens as if sheer willpower could force them to flicker back to life. Then, without warning, the feed returned. The first image was of the vigilant star, split in two, its burning remains tumbling into the rift's gas clouds. Around it, Korthan warships scattered in chaos, their formations broken, their weapons silent. Titan and Leviathan moved like titans of myth, their main batteries firing beams so bright the sensors had to dim the view. The entire battle had lasted just 13 minutes. Elias didn't cheer. He couldn't. He just stared at the image of Titan, steady and unshaken, and thought of Mara, standing somewhere inside that vast fortress. She had been there. She had seen it happen. She was part of it, and she was still so far away. That night, back in his quarters, Elias found a new message, waiting for him. It wasn't marked or signed, but he didn't need to guess who it was from. The screen lit up with Mara's face, this time streaked with sweat and shadowed by exhaustion. "We did it, Eli," she said, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "The rift is open. The Korthans ran. I wish you could have seen it. No, I wish you could have felt it. The way everyone stood together. It wasn't just victory. It was proof that we don't have to hide anymore." Her smile faded a little. "I don't know when I can send another message. Things are moving fast. But I want you to know. I still remember the nights on the observation deck. I still remember everything. When it's safe, I'll come home." The video cut off there. Elias sat for a long time in the dim light of his quarters. The ache of missing her was still there, but something else had taken root alongside it. Hope she was alive. She still thought of him. And she believed that what they were doing would change the galaxy. In the days that followed, the news of the first strike spread far beyond human space. Alien empires that once mocked humanity now scrambled to reevaluate their fleets. Traders whispered of the giant war planets that could erase entire armadas in minutes. The Galactic Council called for talks, but their voices sounded thin against the roar of human engines. Elias knew there would be more battles, more distance, more nights without word. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel powerless, because he knew the truth now. Humanity wasn't small. Humanity wasn't weak. And neither was his bond with Mara. The galaxy had seen the first strike, and it was only the beginning. Elias Kane woke to the sound of every alarm on Titan Station going off at once. It wasn't the harsh, panicked siren of an attack. It was the steady, pulsing tone of a high-priority broadcast. Half awake, he stumbled into the corridor, joining dozens of others heading toward the central viewing hall. Even the alien merchants came, their eyes wide with unease. On the huge main holoscreen, the black and silver crest of the Terran Defense Authority spun slowly. Then a voice spoke in a calm, steady tone, a voice Elias recognized instantly. "Mara, we are back." That was all she said. No threats, no demands. Just those 4 words, repeated in every major galactic language. The image shifted, showing the First Fleet, Titan, Leviathan, Aegis Dawn, and their escorts, arrayed in perfect formation against the stars. Even the feed's alien translations couldn't hide the human pride in that moment. It wasn't a boast. It was a statement of fact. Humanity had returned to the center of galactic power, and nothing would ever be the same. Elias stood frozen in the crowd. The last time he had heard Mara's voice had been in the hurried video after the first strike. But now the entire galaxy was hearing her. He wanted to be happy for her, and he was proud even. But the joy was tangled with something else. The reminder that she was out there, far from him, speaking to billions. And he couldn't even send her a simple reply. The broadcast ended after only a few minutes, but its effect was immediate. Stations across human space erupted with excitement. People cheered in the halls, slapped each other on the back, and talked about the new age. In the alien quarters, the mood was different. Traders muttered nervously. Envoys sent hurried messages to their homeworlds. The council's representatives kept their faces carefully blank, but Elias could see the tension in their eyes. The galaxy had been comfortable with a quiet, unthreatening humanity. That comfort was gone. Later that day, Elias found himself back in the observatory dome. He had been spending more and more time there, watching for the distant pinpricks of light that marked the fleet's movements. He imagined Mara on Titan's command deck, standing with her crew, knowing she was part of history. But history felt cold when you couldn't share it with the person you cared about most. That night, he got a message. It wasn't an official fleet transmission. It was hidden, buried inside a routine sensor data packet. He almost missed it. When he decrypted it, Mara's face filled the small screen. "Eli, I don't know how much longer I can do this without seeing you," she said softly. Her uniform looked sharper, more formal now, and there was a hard edge in her eyes he hadn't seen before. After the first strike, everything's moving faster. Whole empires are preparing for war. We've had offers of surrender and threats of annihilation in the same hour. She paused, glancing down as if trying to find the right words. But when I stood in front of the fleet today and said, "We are back," I thought of you. I thought of us standing on the maintenance platform, looking at Saturn. That's why I smiled. That's why I sounded sure. Her lips trembled slightly. Before she straightened, "I can't promise when I'll be back, but I promise I will come back. Hold on for me, Eli." The message ended. Elias sat in the dim light, the ache in his chest growing and softening at the same time. She was still thinking of him, still holding on to the same memories. And even though the galaxy now knew her as a voice of power, she was still Mara. Over the next week, the galaxy reacted to the broadcast. Some worlds sent gifts, symbolic gestures of alliance. Others sent fleets to observe human space, which was just another way of saying spy. The council demanded an emergency meeting. Human delegates attended, but this time they didn't sit quietly in the back. They spoke, and the others listened. The news feeds ran endless debates. Was humanity dangerous? Was it fair for them to build ships the size of small planets? Could anyone stop them if they wanted to? Elias Kane had grown used to living with distance. Distance from Mara. Distance from the truth of what she was doing. But now, the distance between them felt wider than the galaxy itself. It had been over a month since her last hidden message. The first few days, he waited with excitement, checking his terminal at every break. Then days turned into weeks, and excitement turned into worry. Was she safe? Was Titan still out there? Or had something gone terribly wrong? The station was busier than ever. Human fleets came and went with a new boldness, no longer slipping quietly past alien borders, but moving in long, confident lines. Alien ships still came to trade, but the way their crews watched humans now, it wasn't the same. There was caution in their eyes. The news feeds told of human victories in systems most citizens had never heard of. The Vora Syndicate surrendered 2 of its core worlds without firing a shot. The Pyrrhic Combine dissolved its government and asked to join. The Terran Alliance, empires that had seemed untouchable for centuries, were falling in months. Elias listened to the victories, like someone listening through a wall, hearing the voices, but never able to join the conversation. Every report, every new treaty, every council speech made him think. Mara saw this happen. Mara was there, and a WASN D.1 evening, while working in the sensor bay, Elias spotted something unusual. A small, unmarked freighter was on approach, flying with no identification codes. The station's automated systems flagged it as suspicious. An hour later, the freighter docked, and a package was hand-delivered to Elias. No name, no return address. Just a small black case. Inside was a datapad. When he turned it on, Mara's face appeared. "Eli," she began, her voice tired but strong. "If you're seeing this, it means I found a safe way to get this to you. We've been moving constantly. Entire empires are collapsing, some surrendering, some fighting to the last ship. It's a lot, the kind of history you can feel pressing down on you." She looked down for a moment, then back at the screen. "I wish you could see it. I wish you were here. But it's not safe. Not yet." Her voice softened. "I think about the station sometimes. The cold air on the maintenance platform. The rings of Saturn. When this is over, I want to stand there again, with you." The message ended without a goodbye. Elias sat for a long time, staring at the blank screen. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. But it was something. And something was more than nothing. The next weeks moved quickly. The Korthan Empire, the same one that had started all this with their attack on Yalara, was breaking apart. Entire fleets deserted. Border worlds declared independence. The first fleet moved like a shadow through the chaos, striking at key strongholds and disappearing before any counterattack could land. Rumors spread that the Colossus, and even larger, warship than Titan or Leviathan, was nearly complete. If true, it meant humanity's dominance was no longer a question of if, only when. One night, the Council's emergency channel lit up. An alien voice, trembling with fear, pleaded for evacuation from the Korthan capital. Rebel. Factions were closing in, and the once proud empire was eating itself alive. The next morning, long-range sensors picked up the unmistakable shape of Titan entering Korthan space. It didn't travel alone. Leviathan and Aegis Dawn flanked it, with entire squadrons in tow. The station didn't get the live feed. No one outside the fleet did. But the after-action report painted the picture clearly. The Korthan capital had fallen. The empire was gone. Elias couldn't help but wonder what Mara was feeling in that moment. Triumph? Relief? Or just exhaustion? He remembered her saying once, before she left, "Winning is only the start. After that, you have to live with what winning costs." A week later, another package arrived for him. Inside was no datapad, only a small holokip. When he activated it, a three-dimensional image of Mara appeared, standing on what looked like the command deck of Titan. She smiled, the real, unguarded smile he hadn't seen since before she left. "It's over," she said simply. "The Korthans are done. The Council can't ignore us anymore. There are still other powers out there, but for the first time, I think we're ahead of them. I think Maybe I can come home soon." Her voice faltered, and for a moment she looked down, as if afraid to meet his eyes. "I don't know if I'll be the same person when I do, but I hope you'll still be there." The hologram shimmered and vanished. Elias stayed in his quarters long after, thinking about her words. "I don't know if I'll be the same person." He didn't know if he would be the same either. He had spent so long waiting, holding on to memories, keeping hope alive. But hope had weight, and carrying it for so long. It changed you. Still, he knew one thing. He wasn't going anywhere. Not until she was back. That night, as he stood on the maintenance platform, the stars seemed closer than ever. The galaxy was changing, empires were falling, and humanity was rising. And somewhere out there, Mara was coming home. The Korthan Empire had fallen, but the galaxy wasn't empty. Other powers were watching, waiting, deciding if they would challenge the humans next dot. And now, there was a new name whispered through every starport, every trading hub, every pirate den. The Colossus. Elias Kane first heard it from a pair of alien traders in the docking bay. They didn't know he was listening. "Bigger than Titan," one said, his voice low. "They say it carries enough firepower to erase a moon in one strike." The other gave a nervous laugh. "If that's true, no one will stand against them. Ever." Elias thought of Mara. If she was on Titan, and Titan was part of this, she must know about the Colossus already. Maybe she'd even seen it. He wanted to ask her. He wanted to ask 100 things. But the last message he'd received from her had been weeks ago. The silence was getting harder to bear. He told himself she was busy, that she couldn't risk sending more messages, that she'd come home soon. But the longer it went on, the more it felt like they were on different worlds. Not just in space, but in life. Then, one morning, the council called an all-hands meeting for every human space station in the outer systems. The message was short and clear. Colossus launch is imminent. Witnesses will be present. Elias didn't know what that meant until the day came. From the viewing deck of Titan Station, the blackness of space shimmered with movement. First came the escort ships, dozens of them, sleek and deadly. Then came Titan and Leviathan, their hulls scarred from months of war. And then it appeared. The Colossus was so massive that at first his eyes couldn't make sense of it. It wasn't just a ship. It was a city of steel, kilometers long, with entire towers rising from its surface. Hundreds of glowing thrusters burned at its rear. The light from distant stars reflected off its hull, making it shine like a silver blade. Even from this distance, Elias could feel its presence. It was a declaration to the galaxy. Humanity is here to stay. As the Colossus passed the station, Elias searched for signs of Mara. He imagined her on one of those command decks, looking out at the stars. Maybe, at that exact moment, she was thinking of him too, but imagining wasn't enough anymore. That night, he sat in his quarters, staring at the empty screen. His hands hovered over the console. He could try sending a message through unofficial channels. Risky, but possible. What would he even say? "I miss you? Come home? I don't know who I'm becoming without you." Before he could decide, his terminal beeped. An incoming file. No sender ID. He opened it. It was Mara. Her hair was shorter now, her uniform darker. She looked older, not in years, but in weight, like she'd been carrying more than one person should. "Eli," she said, her voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. "We launched the Colossus today. I was there. It's more than a ship. It's the start of something bigger. The Council says it will keep the peace, but peace has a cost. We've seen that." She paused, glancing away for a moment. "I wanted to tell you something. They've offered me a place on the Colossus. It's permanent." Elias felt his chest tighten. Permanent. That meant even farther away. I haven't decided yet, she continued. Part of me wants to say yes, but another part wants to come home. To you. I don't know which part will win. The message ended. That night, Elias didn't sleep. He walked the maintenance platform again, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, she was deciding between the galaxy and him, and he realized something. If he waited here, he might lose her. If he wanted to reconnect, he had to move. The next day, he filed a transfer request to the Terran Exploration Course, the only branch that could get him close to fleet operations without being a soldier. It was a long shot. They didn't take station techs often. But a week later, the approval came through. Destination: Colossus Support Division. When the shuttle finally carried him across the void, the Colossus grew in the viewport until it filled his vision. Docking felt like approaching a small planet. Inside, the corridors were wide, filled with the hum of power systems and the faint vibration of massive engines. Crew from dozens of worlds moved with purpose, their uniforms marked with the Colossus. Emblem: a single star within a circle. And then, in one of those corridors, he saw her Mara stopped when she noticed him. For a moment, she just stared, as if her mind couldn't catch up with her eyes. Then she smiled, a tired, hopeful smile. You came, she said. I didn't know how else to reach you, Elias replied. So I came to you? She stepped closer, and for the first time in years, they were in the same place. No screens, no delays, no distance. Outside, the Colossus,